Today you find me at the Culford tree barrow on a very wet and rainy day, but we're going to talk to Claire Wiles from Drawn To Dorset about vital information she's got.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So I'm at the Culford Tree Barrow, which sits between Dorchester and Weymouth. Hugely significant site. This is a barrow cemetery with a whole chain of long barrows and round barrows, and there's even a bank barrow just behind us. Hugely significant to our ancestors, where they buried their dead. Anyone that lives locally will have seen these round mounds on the hill, such as the Binkham Bumps and so on. And they're really prominent within our landscape and really fascinating. And we're starting here because we're following up from a story that was in the Echo locally about the devastation of Cane Woods. But first of all, let me just set the scene a little bit by telling you about the Culford Tree Barrow, because this is absolutely fascinating. It's one of the most well-known, I would say, locally, because of the field that it's in with the lovely trees. It's beautiful, full of a ring of beech trees. And the barrow itself was excavated back in, I'm so sorry, I've got to remember the date now. Do you want to pause it?
That's okay, go ahead.
1858, I do apologise, by Captain Damer of Came House. And on the top of the mound, the trench is still visible. And when he had that dug, there were 4 skeletons that were found quite near the surface, all facing east, one being a female, and she was found with some amber beads, and some actually had gold on the bottom, which is amazing, and also a big urn. Then further down, they felt that the skeletons may be Anglo-Saxon. They dug further down, and then they found the original Bronze Age burial, which was, of course, ashes in an urn. So this has been used, as you can see, over the centuries. It was often with barrows, they're used and reused as time goes by. So this one, they have actually excavated, as I say, but not many of them have been. But again, with this, the Culford Tree Barrow gave its name to the medieval Culford 100. So in medieval times, they met for judicial reviews and the courts and things. And this was where the Culford 100 met. So again, you can imagine all these people making huge decisions meeting here. This site is so significant, it's unbelievable. Within this video, there will be some LiDAR maps and some old maps as well for you to see, which make it all the more interesting when you can see how many of the barrows there actually are. So you are standing on ancient sacred ground, really significant ground, used for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years by our ancestors, which is, you know, really wonderful. And I'm going to take you down now to a recently cleared long barrow that you didn't used to be able to see because of the wood. So here behind me is the long barrow. So this is older than the round barrow where you saw me before. This is a Neolithic long barrow, so a chambered tomb. And of course, we've got several of these here in Dorset. We've got the Grey Mare and her colts, which people are very familiar with, up above Abbotsbury. But this one used to be very well hidden in the trees. The woodland used to come right out to here. So people didn't know that it was actually, there was a long barrow in there. And it's a really interesting one. It's got the very long bank there with the rounded top. I believe that it's been cleared to actually try and preserve it. Slightly sad because there were some beautiful beech trees, but anyway, you can actually see the long barrow here now, which is of great interest and again shows the huge significance of the site that we're on. As this is a place that I walk frequently and take walk groups up around here and everything, it's such a beautiful place to walk. I was devastated when I saw the amount of destruction going on with the woodland. So I thought I would try to find out some more about what was going on. And there was an article in our local Dorset Echo as well about it. So the signage says, Cane Wood harvesting. We are currently felling diseased ash in Cane Wood. The trees being felled are suffering from ash dieback that leads to tree mortality and failure. The works are in accordance with the estate's long-term woodland plan approved by the Forestry Commission. In addition, we are clearing trees from a number of ancient monuments with the support of English Heritage. All areas have been surveyed prior to harvesting. On completion of the works, any ground damage will be restored with the open areas replanted with a mix of native species. These works, whilst significant, will assist in the recovery of a number of habitats and species that have been in decline due to heavy shading and, in time, a more resilient woodland able to better cope with climate change, pests and diseases. That was on the sign. Well, I wanted to know a little bit more about that, actually. I wanted to know what the Forestry Commission had to say and what English Heritage had to say. So let's go to English Heritage to start with. So it actually, when I contacted them, they said they were in two bodies now. They'd separated, and it was Historic England in actual fact. And I had a very nice email from a Mr. Daniel Bashford from Historic England. So he was grateful that people on the ground informed them of potential damage. So that's very good. So there you know, if you see some damage to an ancient monument, it's worth reporting. So the works on the barrows are being carried out at their request. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what he says about the barrow group. So he says, this exceptional barrow group comprises a good variety of barrow types, including a particular rare form of barrow known as a pond barrow. There are only approximately 60 known examples in the country, and this one is particularly fine. Again, this is indicating how sacred, how special this whole area is. There is a further pond barrow, which has been partially damaged by historic quarrying and is not part of the scheduled group, but they're hoping that will be reassessed. The barrows were covered with potentially damaging or unstable trees and a very large badger set. They haven't removed the trees from the barrow to the far northeast of Barrow A, which I will put on the notes, as the trees are relatively stable. So the works that have been requested include the removal of the trees from the barrows, geophys survey, and then the meshing over of the most upstanding barrows other than the one containing the badger set to prevent future badger damage. The grass will grow through the mesh, bind into it, making it invisible, and these areas will be managed as a glade within the wider wood, a benefit to archaeology but also diversifying habitat and ecology as the sign at the boundary suggests. There will be restocking of trees between the barrows in the glade. So I've moved a little bit further up here because in the wood here, they said from Historic England that there's a previously unknown World War II camp, they believe related to D-Day. Some of the structures are shown on the LiDAR map. And there's a feature which is a World War II concrete and brick water tank dug into a barrow. Now, this is quite interesting to me actually, because when I was in my late teens and in the campaign for nuclear disarmament in the early 1980s, we were always told there was a nuclear bunker in Canewood. So who knows? Anyway, they think that this is a new bit that they found here. And the barrow still remains, and it contains a beech tree that is perhaps 200 years old. And the World War II camp is being recorded by an archaeological contractor, so there's no damage to it. Now, when they say about that beech tree being 200 years old, that would be in line with the beech trees that you could see when we were talking about the Culford tree barrow. The upsetting thing, I think, is the fact that it's not just the ash that are coming down. There's a lot of beech trees that have come down. There's also silver birch, there's holly, there's sycamore. Anyway, I'm sure they know what they're doing. The second email that I had, which came through this morning, was from the Forestry Commission, from Rob Greenhull of the Forestry Commission. So I actually emailed him with, again, asking what was going on, but also how upsetting it is that there are so many habitats here that this has to be done at this time of year. We've got a huge variety of bird life here, which I'll talk about more in a minute. We've got the deer. I've seen the deer running from the diggers. There's a huge herd of deer. There's buzzards, there's badgers, there's foxes, there's hares, there's all the wildlife that you expect in a woodland. So I wanted him to reassure me what was going on with this. However, he said that although they advise felling to be conducted at a certain time of year, there is no mandatory obligation for landowners to adhere to this. Circumstances, ground conditions, soil preservation and access have a bearing on the time of year that felling takes place. This felling is to remove diseased ash trees predominantly, which do pose a significant threat to the general public. However, the general public aren't allowed in the wood. I'm just going to add that in anyway, and estate workers should they fall. It's also aimed at clearing the scheduled monuments. He also said it may be of interest for me to know that the estate owners will be replanting the area with a varied array of native species geared towards enhancing the biodiversity of the area. And although the initial impact of the works can appear to be shocking, the resulting woodlands in the coming years will significantly improve the habitat and diversity of the species that currently thrive there. He is going to come and have a look in the coming days, and just check it all out, because okay, they've explained what's going on here, which is great with the monuments, and I can understand the preservation of the barrows, which is all good. You know, these things are so ancient, they need to be preserved. But we're going to go now to another area further near to Came Down Golf Club for people to see what's going on there. So I've brought you now to the footpath, the public footpath that's opposite the Came Down Golf Club. So this is kind of the other end of the wood, if you like. And this was a beautiful wooded area full of wildlife. And I just wanted you to see what has happened here. Again, in the name of ash dieback, a complete and utter devastation of the land. Okay, I can understand that they have to clear diseased trees. What I find so heartbreaking is the habitats that are destroyed in this and why they've had to do it at this time of year. The sap is rising in the trees. The foxes, the hares, the badgers, they're all having their young. All of the birds are nesting. It just seems the worst possible time of year. And if it is ash dieback and it's ash trees, there's just nothing left. So it is heartbreaking. I'm not criticising them. I'm sure they know what they're doing. But for me, I find it, really upsetting. Any comments to this video or any comments that come in afterwards from the Forestry Commission or Historic England, obviously I will share them so that we know what's going on. And I know they say that the estate are going to replant this area. Well, we'll all be keeping an eye on that, won't we, and making sure that that is actually going to happen, because we've just lost. I can see where a beech tree has been cut down. These aren't just ash. There's holly, sycamore, as I say, silver birch, a whole variety of woodland trees. And of course, all this would have been full of bluebells as well. So this is a very gut-wrenching and very sad sight. And just a little bit more about the wildlife. A friend recorded up here a number of birds on the 11th of April. And that was similar sort of time, similar sort of weather conditions. And there were, and I read them, nuthatch, skylark, wren, blackbird, chaffinch, blackcap, song thrush, green woodpecker, robin, goldfinch, great spotted woodpecker, blue tit, tree creeper, chiff chaff, bullfinch and a crow, and a buzzard sighted but not calling. An amazing array of birds. Now we've recorded today and we've only managed to record about 6 varieties of bird, probably because of all the work going on. But again, I'm so sad because they would be trying to nest and raise their young, as with the deer that I saw running away from the diggers. That was very sad. And the squirrels seem to be very misplaced. They're trying to again, all raise their young at this time of year. So it is very sad that they have chosen to do this at the worst time of year possible. So I'll say goodbye now, and thank you so much for joining me on this ancient and historic land, the land of our ancestors, of course. And any progress or anything else, we'll certainly keep you updated. And if you're this way, please come and have a look for yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.